Okay, I'm gonna make a video because I just watched back my other video and I remember what it is I was wanting to talk about and expand on, which is essentially what I think is in store for the future. And I think that because of the way society is right now in our government, I'm going to just get to the point. I think the government is trying to create a society or like citizens to become anarchists. They want citizens to fight each other, and they want citizens to start to fight the government. You might be like, why would they want them to fight the government? Wouldn't that be contradictory? Well, if we fight the government obviously has more resources, more weapons. So they're going to use that against us, and that's going to work for a lot of people because a lot of people don't want, their government just unleashing their weapons on them. So they're gonna let the anarchy and people get all upset and fight each other and fight the government, and they're gonna trigger this through things like shortages, like food shortages, to get people worried. They're gonna trigger it through really intense just like political sides, so making people like kind of battle one another, and then like causing political unrest or having something crazy happen. Like whenever there was, okay, actually I'll digress from that point, but they'll do that. And even with, okay, so we'll leave that. Those are some ways that they'll start to trigger to get people to like want to fight each other, because if there's shortages, if there's a lack, people are gonna be more quick to be violent towards one another to get what they need for survival, like their survival instinct. They're gonna put people into their survival instinct, and people are going to become violent because they're in their survival instinct. And so then eventually they're going to get it to the point where people fight back on the government, and you can see how the government's already pushing things in people's faces, like, and people are getting upset by it. I don't want to go too much into that, but basically the government's going to do things and continue to take away the rights of citizens or push things onto citizens that is going to get citizens really upset. And that's what's going to cause, that start to have people start to revolt against the government, because they're going to be like, And this is where I really am trying to give like a warning, is do not get violent towards each other and towards the government, because you reap what you sow. You create violence, you get violence. Please do not go down that path. That is the path that I think the government wants you to go down, because if you are responding in violence towards the government has a lot of resources, a lot of basically just resources right now. So they could use their entire army against citizens. Like, citizens have numbers, government has like resources. So at the end of the day, the government's going to be like, cool, all these people are rising up against us. Now we can implement what we've always been wanting to implement, which is more lockdown, more control, more you name it here. Because if now all of a sudden all the citizens are rising up against the government, it gives the government an excuse to take away our rights, because it's like, oh, they're a threat to the government. And so the government's going to come in and basically just take all our rights away after that, because they've deemed us as like enemies of the whatever government. And then they're going to give benefits to people who do stick with the government. So that's the whole like mark of the beast, is like, you know, you'll be able to still go to the grocery store and get food. If you're not, like, good luck, like, type. I just really see that happening. I can really see that happening. And that's why I want to give this warning, because I feel like I want to not have that happen. And basically just tell people, don't act out in violence. Do not. Please, 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 please. Please do not become anarchists and fight each other and fight the government. Like, we should most definitely fight the government, but there's a different way to fight, which is removing yourself. You don't have to be violent. Like, you just have to go through hard things. And, you know, it is going to be hard. Like, it's going to be so hard to not have everyday access, like grocery stores or, you know, air conditioning and all this stuff. Like, it's not going to be easy. And they're not going to make it easy. But we have to remove ourselves, and it starts with being self-sufficient. Stop relying on the government so much. Honestly, like, my heating for my apartment and cooling is all through the government. It's like, I don't want to rely on that. Like, I could figure out solar panels. I could figure out there's ways you can like dig underground and cool things and all that stuff. That's natural. That's available to me. Growing food, like building a community. Those are things that we can do. Start coming together as people, but they don't want us to come together, because that's when change can actually happen. That's when they don't have creative control, because let's say all these people are just like, you know what, we're not gonna go to the grocery store anymore, and we're just gonna grow our own food or do whatever. It's like, I feel like the government's gonna come and try and like make laws around that, but it's like, at the end of the day, how are you gonna make a law against growing food yourself, you know? And there's kind of ways around everything. So we just have to be creative and work together, and just not fight and battle the government, but rather ignore and be like, you're over there, I'm over here. Like, go over in your corner. Go in your corner, I'll go in my corner. It's like, I'm not gonna battle you. I'm not gonna be like, this is my whole space. Like, you can go over there, I'm gonna go over here. That's totally fine. But yeah, something I was gonna mention, I don't know if I mentioned it in this video or the one I just recorded, but I had to delete because I said a word that would have triggered the algorithm. But you can see them already trying to like push this in society with like even just like the level of like transgenders that, or transgenderism is pushed in the media and in schools right now. Like, was just with the Olympics, I'm pretty sure for Pride, our White House had like transgender people like all over the lawn, and it was like a big old thing. And it's almost just like they almost are making a mockery, because like with the transgenders with the Olympics, it was like them mimicking the Final Supper to like irritate Christians, and then it's like transgenderism on like the White House lawns. It's kind of like tying the two and making people upset. So they're like triggering people through stuff like that to have problems with the government, and then they're kind of creating that violence through even like when there was that George Floyd like Black Lives Matter movement, and there were riots happening, and I think it was like police officers or infiltrators were going into the riots and starting to like destroy businesses and start violence, and kind of frame that it was these people protesting. It's like, that's what they're gonna want to do. They want people to think that violence is normal. That's why they were trying to get like it normalized with the Black Lives Matter thing. Was like, oh yeah, protests are violent. Like people get violent when they're upset. And it was like they had to do that themselves. They had to infiltrate. Like naturally people weren't violent, weren't wanting to do that. They were just like, hey, this is messed up, you know, if you are unnecessarily killing people of color or like being extra violent towards them, that needs to be stopped. No duh. But it was like the way that they played it out within the way they played it out in the media was like, oh, you know, all these riots, so violent, like how dare they, but just normalizing it. They want to normalize that. They want people to literally be like, I don't know, just fighting each other, fighting the government, being violent, because that gives them permission to create more control and lockdown. So please, 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 don't be violent towards each other. Don't be violent towards the government. Don't be violent towards anything. Just redirect your energy. Don't take that energy and battle your opposer. Just take the energy and continue to build what it is you want. Like if I sat here and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna take down the government and I'm going to, you know, demolish this society structure so that we can build one on trust and honesty and whatever, like, or that was me looking towards the future. But if I were just solely focused on taking down the government, I wouldn't know what it is that I'm wanting, which is to build trust and honesty within a community. So rather than channeling my energy towards destroying this force, if I were to do that, it leaves an open space for newness, because all my energy is channeled towards destroying this force. It's like this new thing can be created, versus channeling all my energy into what it is that I want to create, which is trust and honesty. That can build on its own, and that can become something that can then take down this structure, if it is something of value, if it is something of importance, if it really is strong and meant to grow. So that's all I really wanted to say. Was that's my prediction for the future. I think you're going to start to see people getting more violent, or there being a push for people being violent and becoming anarchists and taking over the government, and food shortages to cause, basically not only food shortages, but things to cause people to be put in their survival instinct. And because no one's been taught how to survive outside of these government structures, people are going to start to panic. It's going to be like, where do we get our food from if we can't go to the grocery store? How do we get electricity if it's not through our, you know, servicing providers? Like, start to learn these things. Honestly, now is the time. If you see the reality of the government around us, we need to take that power back, okay? This is how we do it, by educating ourselves, by standing together as a community, by not battling each other, but supporting each other for the greater good, which is basically not wanting to be controlled by people who don't have our best interests at heart, or who don't even care about us. They just want to perpetuate the power they have. It's like, and that's a thing too. That's why they're wanting to create anarchists, is because people are waking up so much right now that their power is dwindling. People aren't giving them that power as much anymore. So they're like, shoot, we need to take our control back and get our power back, because, you know, people are waking up. Joke's on them. It's inevitable. So just, you know, let it go and move with the flow, and maybe then it won't be so bad for you. But I digress from that point. That's all I wanted to say. That's my warning. Warning for the future. No, it's more so just an awareness of the way things are and how it can lead to what's to come, and just making sure that we are moving in accordance with that divine understanding that we are one. We move together as a community of human beings versus fighting each other over these stupidest little things that don't even matter. Like, I'm sorry, people are dying around the world and you care about having the newest bag. Like, you really think that's like the biggest issue that should be on your mind right now, is like having the best bag or having like